Hello and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV. Today, I'm delighted to be able to bring some unique insights, hot off the press as they say, from last week's release of the 2024 Travel Benefits and Customer Engagement Research Report for Asia Pacific, commissioned by our friends in Collinson. This research was conducted with more than 7,250 people across 14 Asia-Pacific markets and was designed to help particularly financial services brands understand the power of travel as they build their value propositions for customers. Joining me to share these insights is Rohan Bhalla, Vice President of Business Solutions for Collinson Asia Pacific, who shares the key points, not just on how travel resonates as a category, but also some fascinating details around which countries, nationalities and demographics spend the most on the travel category, compared to other areas of their household budgets. Rohan also shares new insights around the incredible growth and projections for both sports tourism and music tourism, as areas for all brands to think about as you're designing your future exciting propositions, all with the power to drive customer loyalty. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Rohan Bhalla from Collinson's Asia Pacific team. So, Rohan Bhalla, welcome back to Let's Talk Loyalty, and now welcome to Loyalty TV.
Thanks, Paula. It's great to be here, and congratulations on 5 years. That's an awesome milestone.
Oh my goodness, you're so kind, Rohan. You guys have been part of the journey, I think, pretty much since day one. So you've really been an amazing support. And I think we're still recovering from the shock. I mean, 5 years, it's kind of hard to believe. I don't know where it's gone. But certainly from our perspective, we're going from strength to strength. And we do love working with you guys. So Collinson does amazing work in the loyalty space. So we're here to learn from your expertise. I think you finally stopped jet setting as well, Rohan. You were obviously together. We were in Brisbane and you did some amazing presentations down there. And now, of course, you've been in Taiwan and now back to Singapore, huh?
Correct. Yeah, travel is happening. I mean, we're all jet setting. You're on the road pretty much all the time yourself. But yeah, Brisbane was really awesome. Yeah. It was great to hear you speaking, and first time we met, so that was really nice.
Indeed, absolutely. So yeah, they say loyalty, honestly, is such a loyal community to each other. So I think we've proven that with all of the wonderful events. So I think today is a really big topic, actually, Rohan. And in many ways, I feel like we're preaching to the converted, because given how much we do travel, I think we instinctively feel how much we love to do it, whether it's personal or professional. But I think as marketeers, obviously, the fundamental starting point before we get into designing any loyalty propositions is to make sure that what we think our customers want is actually what they do want. So travel is always the key topic for that. So amazing research we're going to get into talking about today that you guys have just published. But before we get into talking about your research report, Rohan, as you know, we have a very important opening question that we really want to pick your brains and see what you admire in the industry, or again, from a personal perspective. So kick us off, and please do tell our audience, Rohan, what is your favorite loyalty program at the moment?
Oh, thanks. So I looked around actually for this one. I am personally not a member of too many loyalty programs. There are a few that I have on my phone, none in my wallet. But I did look around to see what was happening in the industry, what was unique, what was fresh, what was exciting. And there is one app that I've been using for a while, and they've recently launched their loyalty program. It's crypto.com. I don't know if you trade in cryptocurrencies, Paula, or have seen that side of the world, but it's pretty exciting. I got into it relatively recently. And crypto.com have launched a loyalty program called Rewards Plus. Now, this is it's different in the form that it is very fresh looking. It is very contemporary, targeted at a very gamified approach. So the audience is younger, people who are more online, who are obviously trading, so they're familiar with that world. And the entire look and feel of the program is very fresh. So it's all about, almost like moon landings. So there's a level in the program that's called a moon colony, and it's got 20 plus levels in it. So I mean, if you think about program tiering, you'd be like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. But then you think about the kind of audience they're attracting, and the kind of gamification that they're used to. 20 levels is exciting. There are benefits that you get with each level. The benefits are a mix of what is transactional, and the rational ones, but there's also some emotional benefits of getting extra value on the crypto that you're trading, or being able to stake cryptos on certain channels and so on. So it is really interesting in the way they've come up with this concept. Given that it's a new program, I think there's a lot of opportunity for it to grow, and they can really expand into multiple areas. I think partnerships will be a key one, which the financial services industry is very used to. So for a fintech, I think it's a space to start, and I think they'll see a lot of traction with expanding that program, bringing on more partners, growing in terms of the community, and it'll be interesting to see the journey of this program as it evolves.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a very good point, Rohan, actually, and very relevant to the conversation today, actually, because I think what I'm hearing, certainly in terms of financial services, is that they are really at risk of disruption. There are so many fintechs that are out there looking to kind of have a share of that market, that at the end of the day, they absolutely have to find ways to differentiate. So clearly, Crypto.com has identified the gamified approach, and I'm definitely going to check that out, even though 100% I am absolutely not a trader, Rohan. So I'll purely be looking at the program. But I like that. It's quite interesting, as you said, just to even observe that they've built in kind of 20 tiers. I'm guessing most of them are purely game tiers in terms of, feeling that sense of accomplishment, not necessarily maybe being rewarded in a tangible way at each level. But anyway, as I said, first of all, it's always great to have a new answer, because we do get a lot of people talking about the old favorites. So thank you for that. And someday we must have a cup of coffee, and you must tell me how it goes with the whole crypto world, because I really don't understand it. So it's a super exciting one to kick us off.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It is an exciting, brave new world. So definitely not for the faint-hearted to be participating in the crypto side. I'm learning myself. So hopefully, by the time we have that cup of coffee, I would be in a little better position to talk more about it.
Amazing. Well, we're all on a learning journey, Rohan, here. So listen, let's get into our main topic for today. As I said, Collinson obviously has just produced a fantastic report, really focused on the power of leisure, the power of travel to drive differentiation for brands when they design their value propositions. So there's an awful lot of background to all of this. But I guess as a starting point, to me, it was almost, it's almost so appealing, again, to me on a personal level, the whole travel piece, that I thought, do we even need research to prove this? But the really important principle, of course, as marketers, is to design for our customers, not for ourselves. So even though I'm already convinced, I thought the first question to you should be, why do you feel that you needed to produce this piece of research? Because actually, it's a huge amount of work.
It is. And we've been doing consumer studies almost every year at Collinson, and we're looking at what are the trends in loyalty, what are consumers saying, what kind of rewards, benefits, channels resonate with them. And over the years, as we've been doing this, the one thing that we've seen, or the shift that we've been seeing most happening, is moving from more rational to more emotional, moving from more tangible to more experiential. And as we see that, what we find that comes out on top is travel. And travel keeps coming back up as one of the key things that consumers are looking at. So when we looked at this year's study and we were setting it up, we said, let's understand what are the motivations and behaviors that travel actually influences for consumers. So in setting up the study, we looked at some of the key criteria for qualification. Was one is that must have taken at least 2 return trips in the year. It's not a lot, but that was a precondition that anyone on the survey has taken at least 2. and they have at least one fee paying credit card. And with that, we wanted to understand what are their behaviors in terms of spend, in terms of rewards, in terms of usage, in terms of acquisition, and so on. And that was kind of the premise of this study. So it was really focused on travel audiences and how does that travel influence their consumer behavior. So that was the premise of the study. We ran the study around April of this year, and we'll be putting out the report for the study in the next couple of weeks. What we did was we interviewed 7,500 respondents across 14 markets in APAC. So we looked at what was those behaviors, and what was the power and influence that travel was having on them, and some of the insights were really interesting and exciting, and it comes out unanimously in terms of how travel influences audiences.
Amazing. Yeah. And I mean, you've said something there, Rowan, that has been said a lot on the show, but I think it does bear repeating. And it's this idea of the move from the transactional to the emotional side. And I remember saying to you, actually, when we were having a call to plan this conversation, when I started in loyalty, which was back kind of in 2010, it was only the rational benefits. Like when we said to people, like, we're building our rewards proposition and we did our research, all they wanted was points and cashback. Whereas what's coming through very clearly, and what I love to see coming in your research, is that actually people are now saying, actually, there's something more important than that. I do want my travel benefits, and that is driving my decision making. So, I mean, given that I was surprised to hear it actually coming through, I wanted to ask, like, were you also surprised that it really now is coming through, I suppose, so robustly in the research?
Definitely. I think it's been inching its way up year on year as we've done these studies. And it's good to see that happening. I think as loyalty practitioners, we talk about soft benefits and the importance of soft benefits in programs. But it's taken a while for brands to start accepting that and start including a lot more of those in what they're doing. And we're seeing that now, coming more strongly from the consumer side as well, that they're more appreciative of this. It's not to say that the rational benefits go away completely. I think the real opportunity is when you can blend the two well and have a strong mix across the two, when you see the maximum impact come back to the program. So definitely something we're seeing coming through year on year across the surveys.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Yeah, we can't have one without the other. And the piece that I did like, I suppose, is that you kind of got into, I suppose, some of the kind of the human needs, I suppose, almost like the psychological side of what travel is actually doing. And again, like I always wish I'd maybe studied psychology a little bit, but just to help our audience understand, because again, not everybody listening will be in financial services, not everybody listening will have any maybe travel benefits at all in their loyalty proposition. They might be in different sectors, for example. But will you give us a sense of some of the very human needs that travel seems to satisfy, as distinct from maybe other loyalty benefits?
Yeah. So when we started doing this research, we also looked at what is it that travel does for us and why is it so important. And while we did our own research online about the impact that travel has on us as humans, we came across some really interesting studies. Now, the first one was a book by an author called Ash Bhardwaj. He's an author and a travel journalist. And he wrote a book called Why We Travel. And in that book, he identified 12 motivations that people have for travel. And essentially, all of what he says and all of those 12 motivations sit at the upper end of our hierarchy of needs. So if you think about our standard Maslow pyramid, after the survival essentials are met, it's really travel.
Yeah.
And what Ash Bhardwaj says in his book is that for a lot of us, travel is one of life's greatest ambitions. And it sits right up there, after having a family, having a house. It's really about travel. And there have been additional scientific studies that have been done which talk about how moving away is an essential habit of effective thinking. So creating distance and difference from where you are today gives us a fresh perspective on the same problems of today or the same questions of today. So home remains the same, home is where it is, but if you step away and then come back, you're able to more effectively think about that. And that's part of just human behavior. So, and there have been multiple studies that have been done along this line that show how stepping away, moving outside, traveling, and then coming back brings a fresh perspective to our things. And it allows us to tackle our challenges, our problems, or even everyday opportunities in a different light. Now, that was really interesting. And that's almost self actualizing in what travel can do. And then the third thing was that it's actually grounded in our DNA. So there's a specific strain in our DNA which predisposes us towards adventure seeking, towards traveling, towards doing more out there. And again, through studies that have been done, it shows that as our ancestors moved out of the Horn of Africa and traveled across the planet, the people that have more of this gene are the ones whose ancestors traveled further away at the time of the Great Migration. So it's almost like it's rooted in our very being, the need to travel and the power of what travel does for us. And we felt that was really interesting to see travel in that light of how it is creating almost a self-actualization for us as we go on our travels. And then putting that into the loyalty context was then how does this influence our behavior? So if we're rewarded with travel, or if we think travel is so important, what is it doing in our choice of brands, in our usage of those brands, and so on? So that's kind of where we started on this journey and what we found with travel, which I personally thought was really exciting.
It really is actually, Rohan, and I don't know about you, but it came through in a couple of presentations, obviously, particularly yours, but back down to, the conference in Australia, this whole idea of remembering, all of our customers as human beings with all of those very specific needs and wants. As you said, there is a hierarchy as we get, more blessed with the basics in life. And I think particularly, that the world is a kind of a crazy place sometimes. So to bring us back to those simple basics, I didn't know it was literally in our DNA, but as I said, I feel that coming through. So it's a lovely human way, I guess, to start the research rather than just having a lot of statistics, is to really keep it with a very human focus.
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy to say, include travel rewards motivate, and here's a whole bunch of stats that prove that. But I think all of us at an individual level understand and appreciate what travel does for us. And it's not to say that we all have to travel 50 times a year or anything like that. I think there is an element of sustainability. There's all the conscience about travel that comes with it, which we're all very aware of. But the power that it has on our being is important. And travel is not always about traveling by air. Could be just taking a bike ride and riding 100 kilometers if you can achieve that, right? That itself is the kind of impact that it has. And I think all of that together is important, and to look at it holistically.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because even when you were saying about the problem solving piece, Rohan, I was thinking I really do need to probably leave my desk more often, even just go out for a walk and do that change of perspective that you alluded to, because I think as busy people, we can forget. And I think it absolutely adds to your point. We're not just talking air travel, we're talking rail travel, we're talking walking, biking and everything. So that beautiful starting point, I think, is, the shared passion. And I know we're going to talk about some of even more passionate topics as well, which are driving people to travel. But I love that point about problem solving, because I think it does kind of remind us all why we do what we do.
Absolutely. Self-actualization will be a very long walk, but
yes.
I think problem solving is important.
We've got to try. And I know we've said it's not about the statistics, Rohan, but I did have one favorite one in your research report. And that was, I suppose, again, how much people are willing to compromise in order to still be able to travel. So I think what you got your respondents are saying is that, first of all, travel, is equivalent for many people only to all of their other household spending combined. And if it comes to it, they may pull back on things like dining, on going to the gym, or other areas of spend in order to make sure they still get that travel experience. So that kind of surprised me again, just how powerful it was coming through. And I guess, yeah, just I suppose in general, like, was there anything that really came through to you as, oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting that, either in terms of, maybe the different people who were responding, because I know there's a lot of different countries represented. But yeah, I'd love to see what intrigued you when you saw the results coming in.
I think you spotted it. I think the key one was the amount people claim that they spend on travel. Now, we expected it to be high. What we didn't expect is that it would be one of the highest across all spend categories. Now, as per the report, almost a third of the audience, almost a third of the expenditure that people do is on travel. The other third is on groceries and retail. So it's right up there with everyday needs in terms of spend. And I think that was something which we were not expecting to see in the study. So the amount that people believe that they spend on travel is really high. In terms of markets, Singapore and Hong Kong have the highest spend on travel as compared to the other markets. And Singapore is almost double of what it is for APAC. And that was, again, really interesting. Now, there are reasons for that, because probably most of the travel from Singapore is international. So there isn't really a domestic travel market per se overseas. So that comes out really, really strongly from Singapore's lens. The other piece is in terms of generations. Now, the millennials are the ones that spend the most on travel across all the generations, but Gen Zs are very close to Gen X and boomers. So the millennials over index, but the Gen Zs and the Gen X are at the same level. Now, that was also interesting. We thought that Gen Zs might be lower in terms of their travel spend, just given the amount of disposable income that they may have to put towards travel. But that wasn't the case. So it did come up strongly and consistently across all generations as well. And I think for me, that was a really surprising and interesting fact. Now, if we go back to what you mentioned about people willing to forego other areas of expense but not cut back on travel, that was something we did during the pandemic. So that was a study we'd done during the pandemic, and people were still willing to forego dining, subscription services, gym memberships, but not cut their travel budget at a time when they couldn't travel. And we've just seen that explode over the last couple of years as travel has opened up, people have started traveling, the ability to spend has gone up. And that's been a really, really interesting output from this survey. I'll be keen to see how it looks next year and to see if that momentum still continues and sustains, and people still have the same bullish expectation on their travel spends.
Absolutely. And I want to get into in a second, Rohan, with you how people are traveling, in terms of the ever increasing expectations, because I know you've got a lot of research there. And of course, you're talking with your own clients all of the time. And I guess witnessing this unfolding firsthand. But before we get into that side, there was also some fabulous, I know it was a separate research study, but about the power of why people travel, I suppose, with regards to, more emerging categories. And I know our audience would also love to hear some of the insights that you have around things like sports tourism, music tourism. I think the sports one was the one that really, again, just kind of blew my mind, having just seen, obviously, the power of the Olympics, and hearing more and more of my friends kind of traveling for, whether it's the World Cup or all of these different events. It seems to be coming on the radar of loyalty marketers for the first time, at least from my perspective, as something they should really be thinking about in terms of travel, is those other associated passions. So I'd love you just to comment on that, because it just seems to be exploding.
Yeah, I think all the travel is with strong purpose. Tourism and business, the two big buckets we club everything under, but there are so many sub buckets within that, and there's almost overlapping buckets within tourism and business as well. So if you think of it as Venn diagrams, with leisure travel and business travel as the two big ones, the intersection, of course, is one that we're all familiar with now, which is the extension of business to leisure or leisure to business, and that's become almost commonplace. But outside of that, there is so many more reasons for travel that we're seeing, and everything from religious travel to medical travel exists. But the two that we looked into were sports and music. And it's estimated that sports and music tourism together is going to be about worth about 1.5 trillion US dollars in the next 8 years. Now, this is going up almost threefold from where it is today, and we're seeing this happen with the number of sports and music events that are happening across the world, and people are really traveling to be a part of that. We have the Formula One coming up in Singapore at the end of this month, and it's a big event for Singapore. We shut down roads, because it's a street race. The roads shut down for the event, and people travel from all across the region to be a part of it. We've seen the same happen with concerts. Taylor Swift had a series of shows in Singapore, and they really raked in not just a lot of benefit and value for the brands, but a lot of tourism money for the country and the economy. And these kinds of events itself are really strong drivers of value for the countries that are hosting them. And I think we're going to see more of that momentum kick in over the coming years. So sports and music is definitely a big one. When we did the survey, we also looked at how often do people travel, and the stats are that almost 70% of sports and music fans travel overseas or outside of their home country for a sport or music event, and that's massive. And when they travel, they don't just travel for the event, but they travel a few days before and a few days after. So there's more that they bake in with that trip, which just means the average spend on such a trip is much higher. And I think that was really interesting to see the purpose with which people travel. And out of the approximately 5 or 6 times that people are traveling in a year, which was the average that came out in the survey, at least 1 or 2 times is what they would travel for this purposeful kind of travel. So, which is really interesting to see how people are thinking about their time, about their travels, about how and where they want to spend money, which also means how and where they will save money.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, when I think about it as, I suppose, from the passion point perspective that we talked about, it was always part of our loyalty proposition domestically, if I use that term. So again, back to my days in Ireland, designing loyalty propositions within telecoms, the brand always did sponsor the local arena, all the big sports teams, of course. But again, it's this idea that people are spending even more to invest in those passions. And I realized I did it myself, Rohan. I hadn't remembered it when we spoke the last time, but my beloved husband had a milestone birthday recently. And he had on his vision board a picture of the stadium for Liverpool, who he has supported since he was like 7 years old, and he'd never been. So I surprised him, and we went to Liverpool, and we went to see a match. So even though I am not a sports fan, there you go. There's my sports tourism contribution. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually doing this.
Fabulous! Congratulations.
Honestly, it's all there. It's all happening. So again, I love to feel validated. So listen, there's obviously super important points for you guys. And again, for anybody listening here to understand, I suppose, the how, all of the extra expectations that are coming through across all demographics actually is what you guys are seeing in the research. And that comes to, I suppose, the expectations at the airports, even pre-airport, actually. I know we did talk about increasingly financial services want to integrate more vertically. So I'd love for you to share that because, as you know, I'm traveling tomorrow and my card has an allocation of 10 airport transfers, and I've already used the full allocation for the year, and it really gives me a reason to engage with that card. And I hadn't realized it was something that, again, as an industry you were seeing coming through as something that we all need to think about. I thought it was a fairly unique proposition. But yeah, I'd love you just to talk about the expectations and what our audience can learn from your research as they plan their propositions.
Yeah, so let me unpick a few things there. I think in terms of so the first one is that what came out in the research is 92% of card holders said that they would search for the rewards and benefits on a card before they apply. So they were very well aware of the benefits. They would be searching for them and only apply for the cards that gave them the right benefits that matter to them based on their needs. So that was really important. The other thing that came out is that most cardholders, and this was almost unanimous, they agreed that the availability of travel related rewards and benefits encourages
Mm-hmm.
them to select a credit card and to
Mm-hmm.
spend on that card for everyday and travel purposes. So exactly what you mentioned, that you have a card with some kind of travel related benefits, and that's motivating you to spend on that card and keep that
Mm-hmm.
card in your wallet. The other thing which came out very strongly was that about about 4 out of 5 consumers said that they would choose a bank that that has the travel benefits on it, and they were
Mm-hmm.
encouraged to stay with the bank that had the travel benefits. So not only was it driving acquisition but also retention. And that was the power that travel benefits overall had on the consumer behavior themselves.
Mm.
So within that, then the next question was, what travel benefits really matter and what resonates with the audience? And when we went into that, what came up strongly was having benefits within the airport ecosystem are the most important, and those
Mm-hmm.
benefits are really around creating status for the travel. So making travel comfortable, making travel maybe even more experiential. So the number one
Mm.
benefit that comes out is having access to airport lounges. So that's a
Mm.
space where you can unwind, relax, get a glass of champagne, and it just sets the mood and tone for the upcoming travel, whether it's business or leisure. So that was the number one benefit that comes up. The second benefit that comes up is being able to go through security fast. So fast track through security. So not having to queue up or wait in line, to being able to bypass the crowds and get to the lounge faster, right? So that was the second benefit that really comes up, and this is unanimous across all the generations that when we ran the survey. And the third is, interestingly, the airport transfer. So being able to get pick up and a drop from your house to the airport, or from the airport to your destination hotel, or your arrival area, that is the third most important travel benefit that comes up. And all three of these are kind of in the airport and around the airport ecosystem is what consumers are looking for. Now, beyond that, there are other benefits which are like duty free offers, dining offers, offers in your destination market, and so on, which come up but vary across generations. But what was consistent was these first three across all generations. Now, if we look at airline programs, right?
Mm.
These are the core benefits that you get with status in an airline program. So as you progress in the programs, or if you buy, the front of the front of the plane tickets, you get some of these benefits, which is transfer from your house to the airport. You'd get the priority check-in through the airport, and then you'd get access to the airport lounge, and then priority boarding and so on. But these are kind of the status benefits which really resonate with consumers. So, checkbox for airlines for having done it, checkbox for the banks that have been doing this for some time now. But if you think across other programs that haven't latched onto this, or are in the travel space but aren't offering some of these things, it's food for thought. See, if consumers are traveling, travel is aspirational. These are the kind of
Yeah.
benefits that matter, and these benefits drive acquisition, usage, retention. Then how do we bring these on board as part of the journey that we're trying to look at? And I think that was kind of the core insights from the survey, which talked about how it drives behavior, what kind of behaviors it motivates for consumers.
Yeah, yeah, I love that actually, Rowan. And the reason I suppose it's so appealing, if I have my kind of loyalty design hat on, is exactly to your point. The clarity is there in terms of the appeal of these benefits, but not everyone can afford to fly at the front of the plane, or ever be able to travel frequently enough, even to get the maybe a silver or a gold card. So for financial services to be able to step in and offer that to a broader range of people who want those ultimate experiences, again, traveling, even twice a year, I think that's a lovely opportunity for everyone to experience that type of travel.
Absolutely. And I think the benefit is a cost, absolutely. But it gives you value on the other end in terms of usage and retention and acquisition. And I think
Yeah.
understanding the interplay between the two is so important to be able to balance out the benefit. A lot of times, what we
Mm.
find which comes up in loyalty programs is the liability side is like, oh, this redemption's happening, there's so much cost, there's so much usage, we want to minimize that. But we don't
Yeah.
look at the other end of it, which is what is the upside that it is bringing. And I think it's important to keep that lens, because from a consumer perspective, which is what came out in the survey, is that they believe it drives them, it motivates them, it influences their behavior. I think the next
Yeah.
level for brands would be to see what is the extent of that influence, and how can we
Hmm.
then make sure we either point the benefits to those consumers that are most likely to engage and have the maximum potential,
Hmm.
or create some kind of hurdles that allow me to create goals for my consumers to achieve, and then unlock some of those benefits. So it's really about the design of the program, with
Hmm.
some of these benefits in mind, which I think is really exciting, and an open space, an open field for all.
Well, it's always been, I suppose, one of the core reasons for this podcast even being in existence, Rowan, was exactly that point. Like, how can we prove the incrementality of the behavior that we're driving? So it is, as you said, absolutely beautiful to give all of these wonderful things to our members. But of course, it has to be tied to a business case. And for any, credit card provider, any financial institution, of course, that's ultimately, the bottom line. They're building their business, and what they're doing is leveraging these, super fun and appealing aspirational benefits, but of course with a very commercial agenda. So thank you for making that point. I think that's super important.
Oh, thanks, Paula. Uh,
Yeah.
I think, should I continue on with financial services?
Yeah, well, I suppose just as a closing question from my side, Rowan, I know when we spoke the last time, you mentioned that I think it was Chase Bank in the US had really leveraged travel in a very powerful way over the years in what is, of course, an incredibly competitive market. So just as I suppose, a story from your side, just to kind of give some sense as to what's possible when this is done well, would you mind sharing that story with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so. Traditional banks are facing a lot of headwinds. We spoke about competitive pressures at the beginning, with fintechs coming in and even alternative currencies existing and so on. Then there's regulatory challenges. There's a lot of interchange regulation that's coming across the board, a lot of interchange capping, which is really crippling a revenue stream for financial services, and that revenue stream predominantly is what funded a lot of the reward programs. And then just overall in terms of consumers are also shifting. Consumers believe that experience is important, and in as part of our survey, one of the stats that we found was that 3 out of 4 consumers say that the experience a brand provides is as important as the products and services. And over the years, what we're seeing in the financial services industry is that NPS has been declining for traditional banks, and the NPS has primarily been declining because they're not getting the kind of experience they want. And there's lots of studies out there that talk about this. So overall,
Yeah.
there are a lot of headwinds for financial services. Now, in this scenario, and knowing what we now know about travel and the power that it has, what we're seeing banks like JP Morgan Chase, what they're doing is they're going into vertical ownership of travel. So they're taking a category that has very high, very involved purchase behavior. So from planning to booking, to experiencing your trip and to reliving a trip, we're all very invested in that travel. And it doesn't matter whether it's leisure or business. We're looking at, what are the best deals out there, what are the best places to stay, what are the best restaurants to eat at, and everything else around it, that comes with that trip. So what the brand has done is that it's taken vertical ownership of that entire journey and said, if we can connect all the different aspects of that journey and make sure that our cards are top of mind as we go through that, as a consumer goes through that journey, that's what's going to connect and bring value back. So over the years, what they've done is they've invested in a lot of businesses that are around this vertical ownership. So, from a loyalty engine to restaurant review companies to concierge services, they've built an entire ecosystem around being able to help consumers across the entire plan and book stages of that journey. And then when it comes to experience, they have their credit cards, which with the benefits that we spoke about, like lounge and transfers and so on, but they've also built their own airport lounges, so their consumers can experience the Chase brand while they're sipping a champagne at the airport. And this is the same consumer that's probably used the card to book their travel on chasetravel.com. So it's an entire connected ecosystem, or a connected commerce ecosystem, that's around travel. Now, what Chase says that they're expecting $15 billion of revenue from Chase Travel in the next year. And they say that 1 in 4 leisure travel dollars is spent on a Chase card in the United States. Now, that is a significant amount of value that you're getting from vertical ownership of one very vested interest area for consumers. And we're seeing a similar story play out across multiple markets. So closer to us in APAC, CBA, which is Commonwealth Bank of Australia, have also gone on a similar journey where they've started integrating elements of the entire travel proposition, from plan and book to experience and relive, into their banking ecosystem. And we're seeing more and more banks especially look at this. So, banks are getting disrupted by the fintechs. The travel world is getting disrupted by the banks. So we're seeing everyone moving into, sort of each other's spaces, but it's a really exciting time. And it's just the power that travel brings, which is highlighted by this.
Well, they are probably the perfect words actually to close on, Rohan. I feel like we could talk for another full hour, but of course your time is precious. The most important thing from my perspective is, of course, to make sure our audience is aware of the 2 research reports. So we'll make sure those are linked to in the show notes. So anybody who's thinking about the power of travel, as we said, to drive that emotional connection for their brands, particularly in financial services, then that's all available very easily. So we'll make sure to link to the Collinson website so people can download it and read it through. So listen, I think that is all the questions I have from my side, Rohan. But is there anything else that you wanted to bring to our audience attention before we wrap up?
Thanks, Paula. This has been really, really good. I think we covered a lot of ground. And travel... The power of travel is not limited to brands that are involved in travel. And I think that's really the change in thinking, or the mindset that I would like to challenge. And what this report, while it's focused on the card space, what the report really talks about, and what we know from an aspirational lens, is that travel is important to all of us. So thinking about how you can bake in those aspects into programs that may not always have a direct travel angle is important. I think that's the opportunity, that's the freshness that you can bring to your programs, which I would like to leave everyone with.
Okay, well, perfectly well said. And of course, Rohan, we'll make sure to link to your profile as well, because I feel like everybody's going to want to link in with you and perhaps pick your brains on how travel might be relevant for their travel programs, even if it's never been before. So thank you for that challenge. I think it's super important to make sure all of our loyalty programs are as inspiring, as engaging as possible. So on that note, Rohan Bhalla, Vice President of Business Solutions for Collinson Asia Pacific, thank you so much from Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV.
Thanks, Paula. It's great to be here.